Welcome to Life After Parental Alienation, Part 1.
I am an alienation victim, otherwise known as a target by professional standards, and a father who has been fully alienated from my 3 adult children over 1 year ago. I say fully because the alienation had origins that began when I was divorced over 25 years ago. As in most cases of parental alienation, narcissistic characteristics of the alienated parent preceded the divorce and grew from passive to malignant during the 15 years of marriage. Actually, first showing as a personality disorder pre-marriage, which psychiatric treatment was sought out and treated by a licensed practitioner in a large East Coast city. Additional sessions occurred during the marriage by the same doctor and another upon his cancer death. That practitioner was head of the psychiatric ward at a prominent hospital. I have written 2 preceding books on the subject, Sleight of Mind and One Man's Journey, having studied this subject since my divorce, coached others, and posted dozens of videos on YouTube. Special thank yous to those professional internet posters, authors, and seminar providers for the fundamental education that contributed to my vast knowledge on this subject. The education was very much needed to survive and go forward in life. Therefore, I author this work for other targets and victims affected by narcissistic alienation. There is a pain in this world that few people truly understand. It is the pain of being a parent whose child is still alive, yet suddenly gone. Not gone by distance. Not gone by death. But gone by one person's design. I have learned that parental alienation is one of the most silent and misunderstood forms of psychological trauma. To those on the outside, it may look like a family disagreement or a child choosing sides. But to the targeted parent, it feels like watching someone slowly erase your existence from the life you helped create. One day your child calls you mom or dad. The next day, they refuse to speak to you. The memories you shared begin to gradually disappear, replaced by beliefs that are not those of the children you once knew. Words appear in their voices that clearly belong to someone else. Always a misaligned variation of truth. Love is slowly replaced with subtle anger, confusion, and rejection by manipulations and subtle coercions. You are left asking one question over and over again. How did this happen? This book is not only about the experience of parental alienation. It is about survival. It is about understanding the psychological warfare that can occur within families. It is about learning how to live again after one of the deepest losses a parent can experience, especially in their twilight years, having been totally abandoned. Many alienated parents spend years fighting for answers, fighting for justice, and fighting for the return of the child they love. Some reunite with their children. Many do not. The experts cite that reuniting can usually take about 10 years, leaving little or no hope for the senior citizen targeted parent. But every alienated parent eventually faces the same challenge. How do you continue living after the people you love have been turned against you? Including the children's friends that you knew, the in-laws, the community. Yes, the alienation requires to be far-reaching to work for the alienator. As in my first book, statistics show that the majority of alienators are women through the abuse of their maternal connection. I coined the phrase utilizing the tears and handkerchief strategy to gain sympathizers to their plot against their target, the alienated victim, thereby creating secondary victims that were required to make the plot work. The journey you are about to read is not simply about loss. It is about resilience. It is about learning to exist, and eventually live, beyond a pain that once seemed impossible to survive. If you are an alienated parent, you are not alone. And if you have never experienced this form of loss, this video to be published in print may help you understand one of the most devastating emotional experiences a parent can endure. Not to mention the hordes of others tagged to make the alienation a success. This is the story of what happens when a parent is erased, and how that parent learns to keep living anyway. The first shift often occurs when your child's behavior begins to change in ways you cannot explain. In my case, my divorce was finalized approximately 24 years ago. The earliest signals that my children were being manipulated began to surface within the first year after the divorce. Looking back now, I realize the process was gradual, an invisible and steadily building plight that eventually culminated in complete alienation 18 months ago. Like many others who experience parental alienation, my situation began subtly. My ex-spouse started attempting to remove me from recognition in important areas of my children's lives, educational institutions, Catholic CCD classes, and medical offices and hospitals, to name the primary ones. In each of these cases, I was asked to provide documentation simply to confirm my role as a parent. This often included an attorney's letter, proof of child support payments, or a copy of the custody agreement. Experiences like this are not uncommon for alienated parents. Because of this, I strongly recommend that you monitor all external points of contact in your child's life, particularly those outside the home of the alienating parent. You may be surprised by the stories that have been told or the subtle narratives that have been created, even in situations that might seem minor or insignificant. The moment communication breaks down and confusion begins. These issues gradually appear in each child differently. For example, my one child was told and believed that it was I who obtained the divorce. One or more were told, or should I say, implied to, that therefore I was the reason they had to move away from their much-loved home, neighborhood friends, location of schools, etc. Recognizing rehearsed accusations and planted narratives. My research has found that recognizing these signs can sometimes be more difficult for alienated fathers than for alienated mothers. In many cases, women appear to be more perceptive in noticing subtle changes in language, tone, and emotional cues. One of my own experiences occurred when my children reached working age. Their mother violated custody court orders by arranging their work schedules, while employed in her business, to overlap with my allotted parenting time. When I tactfully attempted to explain the situation to each child as they became old enough to work, their responses were vague. They showed immediate disdain for my concerns and defended their mother's decision, yet they could not clearly explain why the work assignments were necessary. As a result, I was often placed in a difficult position. I could either accompany them to work in order to avoid losing additional ground in our relationships or accept being reduced to a brief dinner together before they left for their shifts. Because the children did not respond well to my questions, many experts suggest that manipulation in these situations often occurs through subtle, repeated messaging. These messages may not be obvious commands but rather insinuations such as, "Your dad's support payments don't cover your needs," "Your father doesn't want you to grow," or "You should have your own independence." Over time, these kinds of statements can shape a child's perception without them realizing it. Another important observation is that when financial support becomes part of the narrative, the alienating parent often fails to mention their own financial responsibility toward the child. This omission can quietly distort the child's understanding of the situation and reinforce the negative portrayal of the targeted parent. How alienation slowly rewrites your role in your child's life. The erasing of a parent rarely happens all at once. It is usually gradual, unfolding slowly over time. In my case, my children began to distance themselves little by little. Over time, your presence in their lives becomes diminished. Holiday and birthday gifts begin to stop. Greeting cards disappear. Even the small acknowledgments that once reminded you that you were still part of their lives quietly fade away. Eventually, even memories and milestones feel distant. Photographs of grandchildren may only come from moments you manage to capture from brief FaceTime calls on your cell phone, quick screenshots taken so you have something tangible to hold on to. Those opportunities ceased over 18 months ago. A punishment perhaps? Never a why. Distance can also help the alienator's efforts. After I retired, I moved to a small retirement town in the Myrtle Beach area, nearly a 9-hour drive from my children. The physical separation made it easier for the gradual distancing to continue. My youngest child, a daughter, visited me often in the beginning, traveling on airfare that I provided. My middle child, a son, visited only once with his fiancée several years ago. He appeared to be the most influenced by the alienator. My oldest child's visits were reduced to a brief overnight stay while she was passing through on her way to her in-laws' home in Florida during trips from Pennsylvania. The COVID-19 pandemic, I believe, provided even greater opportunity for alienation tactics to deepen. Before the pandemic, I had made visits nearly every other month, staying for short periods of time. Once travel became restricted, those visits largely stopped, occurring only for major events such as graduations, christenings, and similar occasions. This ends Part 1. Please like and subscribe for future parts.